The weight of 3 coins clinked in Olivia Carter's apron pocket as she wiped down the last table at Mulligan's saloon. It wasn't enough, not nearly enough for the medicine her younger sister needed. The year was 1879, and Wallace, Nebraska, was a place where dreams came to die unless you had the grit to keep them alive. "Closing up, Liv," Mr. Mulligan called from behind the bar, already counting the day's earnings. "Yes, sir, then heading over to the hotel for my night shift." Olivia tucked a strand of copper hair behind her ear, hiding her exhaustion behind a practiced smile. Her body ached from standing since dawn. First at Mrs. Wilson's laundry service, then at the general store through midday, and now finishing her evening shift at the saloon. 3 jobs, barely enough pay for a single person, let alone the expensive medicine that kept her sister, Emma, breathing through the night. "You're working yourself to the bone, girl. Your sister wouldn't want that. Emma doesn't have much say in the matter, does she?" Olivia replied, more bitterness in her voice than intended. "Not until I can afford Dr. Patterson's treatment for her lungs." The tuberculosis had come swiftly for Emma last winter, robbing the 19-year-old of her vitality almost overnight. Now, at 23, Olivia was all Emma had left in the world after their parents' deaths 3 years prior. Olivia untied her apron and hung it on the hook by the back door. "See you tomorrow, Mr. Mulligan." The streets of Wallace were quiet as Olivia made her way to the Grand Western Hotel. Most respectable folks were home, and the disreputable ones were already settled into the saloons for the night. The summer air hung heavy with dust and promise, though the latter seemed in short supply for the Carter sisters. Mrs. Holloway, the hotel owner's wife, greeted Olivia at the staff entrance. "There you are, dear. We've a full house tonight. A cattle buyer's in town, some big operation from Kansas City. The owner's staying in our finest suite. Is there anything special I should know?" Olivia asked, donning the hotel's standard gray uniform dress. "Just that he's paying extra for round-the-clock service. You'll be attending to his floor exclusively tonight." Olivia nodded, grateful for the possibility of additional tips. Every penny counted now. Her night shift passed slowly. Polishing brass fixtures, turning down beds in unoccupied rooms, delivering fresh water and towels. Shortly after midnight, a bell rang from the 3rd floor, the cattle buyer's suite. When she knocked on the door, Olivia wasn't prepared for the man who answered. He stood a head taller than her, with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of prairie grass after rain. His shirt was fine cotton, but the calluses on his hands spoke of a man who knew hard work. "I requested coffee," he said, his voice deep but not unkind. "Been traveling 3 days straight and still have paperwork to review." "Right away, sir," Olivia replied, trying not to stare. This wasn't some city businessman playing cowboy. Despite his fine clothes, everything about him spoke of the frontier. When she returned with the coffee tray, he was sitting at the desk, ledgers spread before him. "Just set it there," he said without looking up. Olivia placed the tray down, but as she turned to leave, a coughing fit overtook her, not her own, but one she recognized all too well. From her pocket, she pulled a handkerchief and pressed it to her mouth, instinctively mimicking the motion she'd performed countless times for Emma. The man looked up, concern crossing his features. "Are you ill, miss?" Embarrassed, Olivia lowered the handkerchief. "No, sir, force of habit." "My sister, she's the sick one." Something in his expression changed. "What's your name?" "Olivia Carter, sir." "Lucas Forrester," he replied, extending his hand. When she hesitantly shook it, he didn't immediately let go. "You look dead on your feet, Miss Carter." "How long have you been working today?" "Since 5 this morning, Mr. Forrester, but I'm fine, really," he frowned. "And your sister, the one who's ill?" Olivia hesitated, unsure why this stranger was asking. "Emma, she has tuberculosis." Lucas nodded slowly, as though confirming something to himself. "I've seen that sickness take good people. Is she getting proper care?" "As much as I can afford," Olivia admitted. "Dr. Patterson says there's a sanitarium in Colorado that could help her, but..." She trailed off. The cost was so far beyond her reach it seemed cruel to even hope. Lucas closed his ledger. "I'm looking to hire help for my ranch about 20 miles east of here. Ranch hands, a cook, maybe someone to keep the books. Paying good wages, too." Olivia's heart sank. I appreciate the thought, Mr. Forrester, but I can't leave my sister. I didn't say you'd have to, he replied. Fresh country air is what the doctors recommend for lung ailments, isn't it? Bring her along. I've got a house big enough for help to live in, separate quarters, proper amenities. Been running the place alone too long. Olivia stared at him, certain she'd misheard. You'd hire us both, you don't even know us. I know enough. He gestured to her uniform. No one works 3 shifts in a day unless they're either desperate or determined. I respect both. As for your sister, if she's even half as hardworking as you once she's on the mend, I'll have gotten the better end of the deal. Suspicious hope flickered in Olivia's chest. This is very generous, Mr. Forrester, but why would you do this for strangers? Lucas's expression softened slightly. Let's just say I know what it's like to watch someone you love suffer while feeling helpless to stop it. He handed her a card. My offer stands. Think it over and come see me at the land office tomorrow at noon if you're interested. After Olivia left his room, she leaned against the wall in the corridor, staring at the card. Lucas Forrester, Wildwood Ranch. Could this be real? Or was the exhaustion finally making her imagine things? Dawn was breaking when Olivia finally returned to the small room she shared with Emma above the laundry. Her sister was awake, propped up on pillows, her face thin but her eyes bright. You're later than usual, Emma said, her voice raspy from another difficult night. Olivia set down her things and went to check Emma's forehead. No fever today, a small mercy. Had an interesting encounter at the hotel. She told Emma about Lucas Forrester's offer as she prepared a simple breakfast of porridge. Emma's eyes widened. Do you think he's serious? It sounds too good to be true. That's what worries me, Olivia admitted. Why would a stranger offer to hire both of us, especially knowing you're ill? Maybe he's lonely, Emma suggested, a hint of her old mischief surfacing. He sounds handsome. That's hardly the point, Olivia protested, feeling a blush rise to her cheeks. And yes, I suppose he is handsome in a rugged sort of way. You should go meet him today. What do we have to lose? Our safety, potentially, Olivia countered, but even as she said it, she knew they were running out of options. Emma's last bout of coughing had brought up blood. Time was not on their side. I trust your judgment, Liv, Emma said more seriously. You've kept us alive this long. But if this is a real opportunity, we need to take it. At noon, Olivia found herself outside the land office, heart pounding. She'd managed to get the morning off from Mrs. Wilson, claiming a doctor's appointment. Now, dressed in her best, which wasn't saying much, she took a deep breath and pushed open the door. Lucas Forrester was speaking with the land agent, but turned when she entered. For a moment, something like relief crossed his face. Miss Carter, you came. To ask questions, Olivia clarified quickly, before making any decisions. Lucas nodded respectfully. Of course, shall we discuss over lunch? I've reserved a table at the hotel restaurant. Over a meal finer than anything Olivia had eaten in months, Lucas explained his situation. Wildwood Ranch had belonged to his father, who died the previous year. Lucas had been expanding the operation, driving cattle to markets as far as Chicago, but the administrative side of things was suffering. I need someone with a good head for numbers to manage the accounts, correspondence, supply orders, and someone to make the house livable again. And where would Emma and I stay? Olivia asked. There's a caretaker's cottage about 50 yards from the main house. 2 bedrooms, its own kitchen and washroom. My father built it for the foreman's family, but my current foreman prefers to bunk with the hands. The salary he mentioned made Olivia's breath catch. It was 3 times what she made from all her jobs combined. Mr. Forrester, Lucas, please. Lucas, she amended, why me? Surely there are qualified people in town who could do this work. He studied her for a moment. In my experience, Miss Carter, skill can be taught, character can't. The way you care for your sister tells me everything I need to know about your character. By the end of the meal, Olivia had agreed to visit the ranch the following day. Lucas would send a wagon for her and Emma to see if the place suited them before making a final decision. When Olivia told Mr. Mulligan and Mrs. Holloway she might be leaving, both expressed reluctant support. That Forrester's got a solid reputation, Mr. Mulligan admitted. Pays his bills on time, doesn't cause trouble in town. His father was well respected too. Mrs. Holloway added, You deserve a chance at something better, dear. Both of you do. The next morning, a wagon arrived as promised. The driver introduced himself as Hank, the ranch foreman, a weathered man in his 50s with kind eyes. Boss said to make sure the young lady was comfortable, he said, helping Emma into the wagon where he'd arranged a makeshift bed of blankets. The journey took nearly 2 hours. Emma dozed for much of it, while Olivia watched the landscape change from the dusty streets of Wallace to open prairie dotted with wildflowers. Finally, they crested a hill, and Wildwood Ranch spread before them. It was larger than Olivia had imagined. A 2-story White House commanded the center, with a barn, stables, and several outbuildings nearby. Cattle grazed in distant pastures, and a stream cut through the property, lined with the cottonwoods that gave the ranch its name. Lucas was waiting on the porch. He approached the wagon as it came to a stop, eyes immediately going to Emma. "Miss Carter," he greeted Olivia, then turned to her sister. "And you must be Emma. Welcome to Wildwood." Emma managed a smile despite her exhaustion. "Thank you for having us, Mr. Forrester. Let's get you settled. The cottage is ready for your inspection." The caretaker's cottage exceeded Olivia's expectations. Recently cleaned, with simple but sturdy furniture, it was twice the size of their current accommodations. Large windows let in ample light and air, and a covered porch offered a view of the surrounding countryside. "This is lovely," Emma breathed, immediately drawn to the window seat in what would be her bedroom. "It needs a woman's touch," Lucas admitted, "but the roof's sound and the stove works well." After showing them the cottage, Lucas gave them a tour of the main house. It was well built but neglected, with empty rooms and dust-covered furniture. "My mother died when I was 15, Lucas explained. "Father never remarried. Since he passed, I haven't had much time for housekeeping." Olivia could see the potential beneath the neglect. "It's a beautiful home." "It could be again," Lucas replied, something wistful in his tone. By the time they returned to the cottage, Emma was tired but more animated than Olivia had seen her in weeks. "The air smells different here," she observed. "Cleaner." Lucas had arranged for them to stay overnight to truly consider his offer. After he left them to rest, Olivia sat beside Emma on the window seat. "What do you think?" she asked. Emma took her hand. "I think we'd be fools to say no, but it's not just about me, Liv. You'd be working for him directly. Can you see yourself doing that?" Olivia thought about Lucas Forrester, his straightforward manner, the way his eyes crinkled slightly at the corners when he smiled, how he'd anticipated Emma's needs without being told. "Yes," she said softly. "I believe I can." The decision made, they moved to Wildwood Ranch 2 days later, bringing their few possessions. Dr. Patterson provided a supply of medicine for Emma and promised to check on her in a few weeks. The first days were a flurry of activity. Olivia dove into organizing Lucas's paperwork while supervising the cleaning of the main house. Emma, though still weak, insisted on helping where she could, arranging flowers from the garden and mending linens. Lucas was often out with the ranch hands during the day, but returned each evening to review the day's work with Olivia. She found him to be fair, intelligent, and surprisingly easy to talk to once his reserved exterior softened. A week into their new arrangement, Olivia was working late in Lucas's study when he returned from a ride to a neighboring ranch. Rain had started to fall, and he was soaked through. "You'll catch your death," she scolded, taking his wet coat. "Worried about me, Miss Carter." There was a teasing note in his voice that sent warmth spreading through her chest. "If you fall ill, who will sign these invoices?" she replied, matching his tone. Lucas laughed, a rich, genuine sound that Olivia realized she hadn't heard before. "Fair point, I'll go change." When he returned in dry clothes, he found Olivia still working. "It's past 9, you should rest." "I'm almost finished," she said, not looking up from the ledger. Lucas sat across from her. "How's Emma today?" "Better, I think. The fresh air seems to be helping, just as you said." "My mother had weak lungs," Lucas said quietly. "Not tuberculosis, but something similar. The doctors in St. Louis couldn't help her, but when Father brought her out here, she improved for a time." Olivia set down her pen. "Is that why you offered us this opportunity?" "Partly," he admitted. "But I also meant what I said about needing help. This place was dying without a woman's touch. His eyes held hers, and something unspoken passed between them. Olivia looked away first, her heart beating faster than it should. "I should check on Emma," she said, rising. Lucas stood as well. "Of course. Good night, Olivia." It was the first time he'd used her given name, and somehow it felt significant. As summer progressed into fall, life at Wildwood settled into a comfortable routine. Emma's health improved steadily with rest, good food, and clean air. The color returned to her cheeks, and her coughing fits became less frequent. Olivia discovered she had a talent for ranch management. Lucas increasingly relied on her judgment for business matters, and the house gradually transformed under her care. Fresh curtains appeared at windows, rugs were beaten clean, and meals became occasions rather than necessities. For his part, Lucas revealed himself to be a man of quiet depths. He read poetry in the evenings, taught Emma to play chess, and never complained when Olivia rearranged his belongings. If his gaze lingered on her longer than necessary, or if her pulse quickened when their hands accidentally touched, neither acknowledged it. One crisp October morning, Olivia found Lucas on the porch, frowning at a letter. "Bad news?" she asked, setting down the coffee she'd brought him. "Cattle prices are dropping in Kansas City," he said, "and the railroad's raising shipping rates again." Olivia sat beside him. "We could seek other markets, Denver perhaps." Lucas smiled at her use of we. "You've become quite the rancher, Olivia Carter." "I've had a good teacher," she replied. "I've been thinking," Lucas said, setting the letter aside. "Emma's doing well enough now that she could manage more responsibilities if she wanted. Mrs. Peterson in town is looking for help at the school. Emma mentioned she used to dream of teaching." Olivia stared at him, touched that he'd remembered such a detail about her sister. "That's thoughtful of you, but town is so far, I'd drive her and myself 3 days a week," Lucas interrupted. "I have business there regularly anyway." "Why would you do that?" Olivia asked softly. Lucas looked at her directly. "Because she's your sister, and because she deserves a chance at her own dreams, just as you do." "And what do you think my dreams are, Lucas Forrester?" The question hung between them, heavy with implication. "I wouldn't presume to know," he finally said. "But I hope they include staying here, at Wildwood." Before Olivia could respond, a ranch hand called for Lucas from the barn. He excused himself, leaving her with thoughts as tangled as wildwood vines. Emma was thrilled at the prospect of teaching. "Mrs. Peterson was my teacher when I was small." "Oh, Liv, do you think I could really do it?" "Lucas seems to think so," Olivia replied, watching her sister's excitement with joy. Emma gave her a knowing look. "Lucas, is it? Not Mr. Forrester anymore. We work closely," Olivia said defensively. "It would be awkward to remain so formal." "MMHMM." Emma's smile was insufferable. "And the way he looks at you when you're not watching, is that just professional courtesy too?" "He does not look at me any particular way," Olivia protested, though her cheeks warmed. "If you say so." Emma turned serious. "He's a good man, Liv. And you deserve happiness after everything you've sacrificed for me." "I haven't sacrificed anything," Olivia insisted. "Everything I've done has been because you're my sister and I love you." "And that's exactly what makes you special," Emma said softly. "Not everyone would have done what you did." The conversation left Olivia unsettled. She'd been so focused on Emma's survival that she'd never considered what might come after. Now, with her sister recovering and potentially finding her own path, what did Olivia want for herself? Lucas was increasingly in her thoughts. His quiet strength, his fairness with the ranch hands, his unexpected gentleness with Emma. She admired him, respected him, but the feelings developing went beyond that, frightening in their intensity. One evening in late October, a fierce storm blew in from the north. Olivia had just settled Emma for the night when the rain began lashing against the cottage windows. Thunder crashed overhead and the wind howled through the trees. A knock at the door startled her. Lucas stood there, raincoat dripping. "The creek's rising fast," he said urgently. "The cottage is on higher ground, but I'd feel better if you both came to the main house until the storm passes." They hurriedly packed overnight bags. Lucas carried Emma through the downpour while Olivia followed with their things. By the time they reached the house, all three were soaked despite Lucas's best efforts to shield them. "You two get warm by the fire," Lucas instructed. "I need to check on the horses." You're as wet as we are, Olivia protested. At least change first. The hands are out there too, he said. I won't ask them to do what I won't. Before she could argue further, he was gone, back into the storm. Olivia helped Emma change into dry clothes and settled her in the guest bedroom. By the time she changed herself and returned downstairs, worry had taken root. The storm had worsened, and Lucas hadn't returned. Unable to sit still, Olivia paced the study, watching out the window for any sign of movement from the barn. Finally, after what seemed like hours, she saw lanterns approaching the house. Lucas entered with 3 ranch hands, all drenched and exhausted. After ensuring the men had hot coffee and a place by the fire in the kitchen, Lucas finally allowed himself to collapse in a chair in the study. The creek breached its banks, he reported wearily. We managed to move the horses to higher ground, but we'll have fence repairs to do once this passes. You're freezing, Olivia said, noticing how his hands trembled. Without thinking, she took the blanket from the sofa and wrapped it around his shoulders, her hands lingering there. Lucas caught one of her hands in his. Thank you. The simple touch sent warmth through her that had nothing to do with the fire crackling nearby. When she tried to step away, his grip tightened slightly. Olivia, he said, his voice low and serious, I need to tell you something. Her heart hammered in her chest. Yes, I hired you because I needed help with the ranch, that was true. But from the moment I saw you at the hotel, exhausted but still carrying yourself with such dignity, I wanted to know you. Olivia found herself speechless. I don't expect anything, Lucas continued. You came here for Emma's sake, and I respect that completely. But these past months, working with you, seeing how you've brought life back to this place back to me, I can't pretend it's just employment anymore. What are you saying? Olivia whispered. Lucas stood, still holding her hand. I'm saying that I care for you, Olivia Carter, more than I should, perhaps, and if there's any chance you might someday feel something similar, Olivia didn't let him finish. With a courage she didn't know she possessed, she closed the distance between them and pressed her lips to his. Lucas froze for a heartbeat, then responded with a passion that matched her own. His arms encircled her waist, drawing her closer as the blanket fell forgotten to the floor. When they finally parted, both breathless, Lucas rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that since the first week you were here. Olivia laughed softly, and I've been telling myself not to think of you that way since the day we arrived. Why fight it? He asked, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Because I came here to save Emma, not to fall in love with my employer, she admitted. It seemed inappropriate, and now I think perhaps we can do both, save Emma and, she hesitated, and see where this leads us. Lucas suggested gently. Olivia nodded, suddenly shy. Yes, the storm raged through the night, but inside the house, a different kind of electricity filled the air. Lucas and Olivia stayed up talking until dawn, sharing stories of their pasts and hesitant hopes for the future. When Emma found them asleep in the study the next morning, Lucas in the armchair, Olivia curled on the sofa. Their hands still joined across the space between them, she smiled knowingly, but said nothing. The weeks that followed were filled with a new kind of happiness. Emma began assisting at the school 3 days a week as planned, her health continuing to improve with each passing day. Lucas and Olivia moved cautiously in their developing relationship, mindful of proprieties, but increasingly unable to hide their feelings. November brought an early snow, blanketing Wildwood in pristine white. The evening of the first snowfall, Lucas invited both sisters to dinner at the main house. I have news, he announced as they finished the meal. I've been in touch with a doctor in Denver who specializes in tuberculosis cases. He's agreed to come examine Emma next month. Emma's eyes widened. All the way from Denver, that must be expensive. Consider it an investment in Wildwood's future, Lucas said easily. The school needs a proper teacher, and Mrs. Peterson speaks highly of your assistance. Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. Lucas had done this quietly without telling her, another act of kindness that spoke volumes about the man he was. Later, when Emma had retired to the guest room for the night, Olivia found Lucas in the study. Thank you, she said simply. You don't need to thank me, he replied. Emma's part of the family now. The word family hung between them, laden with meaning. Lucas crossed to her slowly, taking both her hands in his. I had planned to wait until Christmas, but I find I don't want to wait any longer. Olivia's breath caught as he lowered himself to one knee. Olivia Carter, you came to Wildwood to save your sister, but you ended up saving me too from loneliness, from a half-lived life. I love you. Will you marry me? Tears flowed freely now as Olivia nodded. Yes, yes, I will. Lucas stood and embraced her, lifting her off her feet in his joy. When he set her down, he pulled a small box from his pocket. This was my mother's, he said, opening it to reveal a gold ring with a modest diamond. Father gave it to me before he died, said to save it for when I found someone who made Wildwood feel like home again. As he slid the ring onto her finger, Olivia felt a circle completing from desperate hardship to unexpected hope to love she'd never thought possible. They were married on Christmas Day, 1879, in the parlor at Wildwood. Emma, her cheeks pink with health rather than fever for the first time in over a year, stood as Olivia's witness. The ranch hands and neighbors gathered to celebrate, and even Mrs. Holloway and Mr. Mulligan made the journey from Wallace. Winter passed in newlywed bliss, and when spring arrived, it brought new beginnings. The doctor from Denver declared Emma's condition dramatically improved and prescribed a regimen that would see her fully recovered within the year. She accepted a permanent position at the school, moving into the teachers' quarters in town but returning to Wildwood every weekend. This place saved my life, Emma told Olivia during one such visit, as they watched Lucas breaking a new horse in the corral. But more importantly, it gave you the life you deserve. We both got second chances, Olivia agreed, her hand resting on her still flat stomach where the newest member of the Forrester family was just beginning to grow. By summer's end, news of Olivia's pregnancy had spread throughout the county. Lucas became even more protective, insisting she rest frequently and hiring additional help for the house. I'm with child, not made of glass, Olivia protested one afternoon as Lucas prevented her from carrying a basket of linens. Humor me, he said, stealing a kiss that still made her heart race. I waited a long time to find you. I intend to keep you safe. We found each other because I was working 3 jobs and you needed help, Olivia reminded him. Hardly a romantic beginning. Lucas pulled her close, his hand gentle against her growing belly. I disagree. I think it was exactly as it was meant to be. In February 1881, James Lucas Forrester entered the world, a healthy boy with his mother's copper hair and his father's green eyes. As Olivia held her son, with Lucas beside her and Emma hovering nearby, she marveled at how completely her life had transformed in less than 2 years, from desperate poverty to abundant love, from endless work to meaningful purpose, from saving her sister to finding her heart's home. Emma recovered fully by the following year and eventually married the town doctor who had taken over Dr. Patterson's practice. She and her husband built a house halfway between Wallace and Wildwood, close enough for the sisters to remain integral parts of each other's lives. Olivia and Lucas added to their family twice more: a daughter, Sarah, in 1883, and another son, William, in 1886. Wildwood Ranch prospered under their joint stewardship, becoming one of the most successful operations in the county. On their 10th anniversary, Lucas surprised Olivia with a journey to San Francisco, a honeymoon they'd never had time for when first married. Do you ever regret it? He asked her one evening as they watched the sunset over the Pacific, taking a chance on a stranger who offered to hire you both. Olivia leaned against her husband, thinking of the desperate young woman she'd been, working 3 jobs and still barely keeping her head above water. Not for a single moment, she replied truthfully. Some might call it desperation that led me to accept your offer. I call it the best decision I ever made. Besides marrying me, Lucas teased. That wasn't a decision, it was inevitable, Olivia said, turning in his arms to kiss him. From the moment you asked about my coughing sister in that hotel room, I think our story was already written. When they returned to Wildwood, life resumed its pleasant rhythm. The ranch expanded, the children grew, and the love between Olivia and Lucas deepened with each passing year. The struggles that had once defined Olivia's existence faded into distant memory, replaced by the joyful chaos of family life and the steady partnership she shared with her husband. 20 years after Olivia had first arrived at Wildwood with her ailing sister and few possessions, the ranch hosted a celebration for their eldest son's wedding. As lanterns glowed across the property and music filled the air, Olivia found a quiet moment with Lucas away from the festivities. "Did you ever imagine this?" she asked, gesturing to the scene before them, their home filled with family, friends, and decades of accumulated happiness. Lucas took her hand, the same way he had that stormy night when he'd first confessed his feelings. The gesture had become their private signal, a reminder of where they'd begun. "I hoped," he said simply. "From the moment I saw you working yourself to exhaustion for your sister's sake, I hoped you might bring that same devotion to Wildwood, to me. And I have," Olivia said, squeezing his hand. "You've given far more than I ever dared hope for," Lucas replied, pulling her close. "A desperate agreement between strangers became the love story of my life." As they rejoined the celebration, Olivia reflected on the long, unlikely journey that had brought her here. 3 meager jobs in Wallace had barely kept Emma alive. One position at Wildwood had saved them both and given Olivia a love she'd never thought possible. Some called it luck, others called it destiny. Olivia Carter Forrester simply called it home.